The quantum arrays at Nightingale Station hummed their usual midnight song when humanity's understanding of the universe changed forever. Dr. Thomas Reid had been monitoring the deep space frequencies for 15 years, and in all that time, the most exciting thing he detected was a pulsar with a slightly unusual rotation pattern. That changed at 3:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. "Contact," the AI announced, its voice cutting through the ambient noise of the monitoring room. "Unknown signal source. Signal pattern indicates artificial origin. Transmission contains complex data structures." Reid nearly spilled his coffee as he rushed to the main console. His fingers flew across the holographic interface, bringing up signal analysis windows. "Origin point. Processing," the AI responded. "Signal appears to originate from the Centauri sector, approximately 147 light-years from Earth." The transmission burst through their receivers with an intensity that overwhelmed their initial filters. As Reid adjusted the gain, the first images began forming on his screen. They were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Crystalline structures that seemed to float in space, pulsing with internal light that defied conventional physics. But it was the fear in the alien voice that made Reid's blood run cold. The translation matrix took 12 minutes to decode the basic linguistic patterns. By then, Reid had already alerted the United Earth Defense Council. The holographic projectors in the monitoring room sparked to life, filling the space with the image of a being that looked almost plant-like, its translucent skin showing complex circulatory patterns beneath. To any who received this, the alien message began, its words now rendered in Earth Standard English. "Were the Centauri. This is our final transmission, our warning to those who might survive us." The image shifted, showing vast fields of crystal-like entities, each one radiating energy that the sensors could barely process. "They call themselves the Cosmic Giants," the transmission continued. "They believe themselves to be the ultimate form of life, ascending beyond organic matter to exist as pure energy and thought. But their ascension comes at a price. They harvest the consciousness of other species, absorbing our neural patterns to fuel their own evolution." Reid watched in horror as the recording showed entire cities being engulfed in sheets of living light. The screams had been muted by the translation matrix, but the visual was enough to make him glad he'd skipped lunch. "We fought them with everything we had. Our weapons passed through their energy forms. Our shields meant nothing against their consciousness-draining technology. They see us, all organic life, as fuel for their grand design." The Centauri messenger's skin had begun to pale, its internal lights dimming. "We send this with our final moments, along with coordinates to their next target and fragments of their technological data. Perhaps you can find what we could not. A way to fight them, to stop them before they harvest every thinking being in the galaxy." The transmission cut to technical data, coordinates, sensor readings, technological analyses. Reid's hands shook as he initiated the emergency protocols, forwarding everything to Earth Defense Command. The messenger's final words echoed through the station. "They believe themselves perfect, above the chaos of organic life. Perhaps that will be their weakness. We die hoping that somewhere, someone will prove them wrong." The transmission ended. Reid sat in silence for a long moment, the only sound the soft beeping of the quantum arrays continuing their endless vigil. Then he did something he hadn't done in his 15 years at Nightingale Station. He opened the station's general broadcast channel to Earth. "This is Deep Space Monitoring Station Nightingale. To all Earth stations. Priority 1 alert. We are no longer alone, and we are no longer safe." Across Earth, billions of screens lit up with the warning, and humanity began to understand just how small they were in a universe that had suddenly become much, much larger, and much more dangerous. The bridge of the UES Prometheus hummed with nervous energy as they dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Valoran system. Admiral James Morrison stood at the command center, his weathered face reflected in the crystalline viewport. Behind him, the tactical display showed the positions of 15 Earth vessels, the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. "Status report," Morrison commanded, his voice steady despite the weight of 7 billion lives riding on his decisions. Lieutenant Sarah Hayes' fingers danced across her console. "Valor and civilization detected on the third planet. Pre-FTL society, roughly equivalent to Earth's mid-21st century. No orbital defenses." She paused, her expression darkening. "Sir, we're detecting unusual energy signatures at the system's edge." They matched the Centauri data. Morrison's jaw tightened. "Show me." The main display shifted, revealing what looked like tears in space itself, geometric patterns of pure light that shouldn't exist in normal physics. As they watched, the tears widened, and through them emerged beings that defied description. Massive crystalline structures that pulsed with internal energy, each one larger than the Prometheus itself. "Open a channel," Morrison ordered. "All frequencies, using the translation protocols from the Centauri data." Before Hayes could comply, every screen on the bridge flickered with impossible colors. A voice filled their minds, bypassing their audio sensors entirely. "Organic anomalydetcted. Your presence here is unauthorized." The voice felt like ice crystals forming in their thoughts. Morrison stood straighter, addressing the void. "I am Admiral James Morrison of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We know your intentions for the Valoran people. We're here to prevent that harvest." Silence stretched for 3 seconds. Then, "Primitive species detected. Analyzing. Impossibility found. FTL technology present. Unauthorized advancement. Source of nanodoleg. Must be determined." The giants' energy forms shifted, their crystalline structures reorienting towards the Earth fleet. Scans washed over the ships, probing their technology, their crews, their very existence. Evolutionary divergence detected. Species developed FTL without guidance. Unacceptable. Harvest priority UPG. "We won't allow you to harvest any more civilizations," Morrison declared, his hand hovering over the tactical controls. "The Centauri warned us about you. We know what you are." The response came with such force that several crew members clutched their heads in pain. The Centauri were FUL. As REKEVALERANS. As you shall be. Your resistance is an aberration. Your independent advancement is an offense to order. Morrison watched as the giants began to move, their energy forms spreading out in attack formations he recognized from the Centauri data. All ships, battle stations, deploy consciousness shields according to Protocol Omega. The giants' next transmission carried something new, an emotion that their crystalline perfection shouldn't have been capable of. Rage. "You dare to use our Ogoan technologies. Unauthorized. Unacceptable. Chaos must be harvested." "Sir," Hayes called out, her voice tight. "They're launching energy projections toward the Valoran planet. Harvesting technology detected." Morrison's response was immediate. "Intercept course. All ships, form up. Consciousness shields at maximum. We show them here and now that humanity doesn't bow to self-proclaimed gods." The Prometheus surged forward, leading Earth's fleet into their first interstellar battle. As they moved to protect a civilization that didn't even know they existed, Morrison remembered the final words of the Centauri transmission. "Perhaps that will be their weakness." Looking at the crystalline perfection of their enemy, he understood. The giants had engineered themselves into perfect, unchanging forms. But humanity was chaos incarnate. And maybe, just maybe, that chaos was exactly what the galaxy needed. "All ships," he commanded, "prepare to engage. Let's show these giants what imperfection can do. The New Eden colony's warning sirens cut through the artificial night, their wail echoing off the transparent dome that protected its inhabitants from the harsh atmosphere of HG 40,307 grams. Dr. Rachel Martinez watched from the colony's neural research facility as 3 crystalline forms descended from orbit, their energy signatures distorting the very air around them. "Evacuation status?" she asked, eyes fixed on the approaching giants. 60% of civilians are in the underground bunkers, her assistant, Alex, reported. "But we're not going to get everyone out in time." The giants had appeared without warning, somehow bypassing the early detection systems. Now they hung above New Eden like abstract sculptures made of light and malice, their consciousness-draining technology already beginning to affect the outer sectors. "Begin recording," Martins ordered, activating every sensor in the facility. "If we're going to die here, let's at least give Earth some useful data." The first giant descended toward the colony's residential sector. Its crystalline form pulsed with anticipation as it initiated its harvesting sequence. The air shimmered with psychic energy as it began to draw out the consciousness of the colonists. Then something unexpected happened. The giant's perfect geometric form shuddered. Its light patterns, usually precise and orderly, began to fluctuate wildly. Through the observation windows, Martinez watched as the creature's energy matrix started to destabilize. "Are you seeing this?" she demanded, fingers flying across her console. "Get me readings on their neural patterns." The sensors told an impossible story. The giant wasn't just failing to harvest the colonists' consciousness, it was being damaged by the attempt. Its crystalline structure was developing fractures, spreading like cracks in ice. Above them, the second giant moved to assist the first, extending its energy field to stabilize its companion. But contact with the chaotic feedback only accelerated the deterioration. Both beings began to emit frequencies that the sensors interpreted as expressions of pain. "It's our minds," Martins whispered, understanding dawning. "They can't process our consciousness patterns properly. We're too chaotic." The third giant retreated to a safe distance, abandoning its companions. On Martinez's screens, the readings showed what was happening. Human consciousness, with its dreams, emotions, and contradictions, was creating devastating feedback loops in the giant's perfectly ordered neural networks. The first giant's crystalline form shattered completely, its energy dispersing into harmless particles that rained down like stardust. The second followed moments later, its final transmission captured by the colony's receivers, a burst of confusion and fear that translated roughly to "impossible. Patterns. 2 TOPMPLX. Cannot maintain cohesion." Martinez stared at the readings, then grabbed the facility's emergency transmitter. "This is Dr. Rachel Martinez at New Eden Colony to all Earth forces. The giants, they can't handle human consciousness. Our minds are too unpredictable, too fluid for their rigid patterns. We're not just resistant, we're toxic to them." She watched as the third giant folded into orbit, its perfect form already showing signs of instability just from its brief exposure. Around her, the colonial defense forces were mobilizing, but Martinez knew they'd just discovered something far more valuable than military might. "Send everything we've recorded to Earth Defense Command," she ordered Alex. "Every sensor reading, every neural scan. We've just found their weakness. And it's us. Every messy, chaotic, beautiful part of what makes us human." As the data transmitted across light years, Martinez allowed herself a grim smile. The giants had spent millennia engineering themselves into perfect, crystalline beings of pure thought and energy. In doing so, they'd lost the very adaptability that might have protected them from the species they considered primitive. The warning sirens fell silent, replaced by the sounds of celebration as colonists emerged from their bunkers. Humanity had just won its first victory against the giants, not through superior technology or military strength, but through the very chaos they had sought to eliminate from the universe. Martinez returned to her readings, already formulating ideas for weaponizing this discovery. The giants thought they had evolved beyond organic life. Instead, they had engineered themselves into obsolescence, defeated by the beautiful imperfection of the human mind. Dr. Michael Blackwood hadn't slept in 36 hours, but the holographic displays surrounding him held his attention like a vice. The captured giant technology pulsed with an inner light that seemed to mock the fluorescent glare of Earth's Xenoneurology Institute. "Play it again," he commanded, rubbing his temples. "Slower this time." The hologram showed the neural pattern of a giant attempting to interface with the human mind. In slow motion, the perfectly ordered crystalline structure of the giant's consciousness met the swirling chaos of human thought. Where they touched, fractures appeared in the giant's pattern like cracks in a mirror. Dr. Blackwood, his assistant, Kate Reynolds, appeared at his elbow with fresh coffee. "The latest simulations are ready." The wall-sized screen lit up with comparative data, giant consciousness patterns next to human ones. The difference was startling. The giant's neural architecture was perfect, symmetrical, utterly ordered. Human patterns looked like abstract art in comparison, full of random connections and impossible leaps of logic. "It's beautiful," Blackwood muttered, stepping closer to the display. They engineered out everything that made them adaptable. "Look at these patterns. No randomness, no creativity, no ability to process conflicting information. They're perfect machines." "And that's why they can't handle us?" Reynolds asked, studying the patterns. "Exactly." Blackwood touched the screen, highlighting a particular interaction. "When they try to harvest our consciousness, they encounter something their perfect systems can't process. Dreams, imagination, emotional complexity. It's like trying to run chaos theory calculations on a calculator that only knows how to add and subtract." He pulled up the data from New Eden Colony. "See these feedback loops? Human consciousness doesn't just resist their harvesting technology. It actively disrupts their own thought patterns. We introduce chaos into their perfect systems, and they have no defense against it." "But how did they become like this?" Reynolds wondered aloud. Blackwood navigated through the archaeological data they'd recovered. "They chose it. Over millennia, they engineered out everything they saw as imperfect. Emotions, creativity, the ability to dream. All sacrificed in pursuit of their idea of perfection." He brought up a new simulation. "Watch what happens when we expose them to different types of human thought patterns." The display showed various scenarios. A child's imagination caused severe disruptions in giant neural patterns. An artist's creative process created cascading failures in their crystalline structure. Even simple human dreams proved devastating to their ordered minds. "They can't even comprehend how we think," Blackwood continued, excitement building in his voice. Their consciousness harvesting technology was designed for species they'd influenced over millennia, races they'd subtly guided toward their own kind of rigid order. But humanity developed independently. We're not just random. We're exponentially more chaotic than anything they've encountered. A priority alert flashed on his screen. New data from the defense fleet. Blackwood's eyes widened as he read the report. "They're starting to fear us," he said softly. "These readings show their patterns becoming increasingly unstable just from attempting to analyze human chips. Our very existence threatens everything they believe about consciousness and evolution." Reynolds looked at the swirling patterns of human thought displayed beside the giant's rigid structures. "We're not just their weakness," she realized. "We're their evolutionary nightmare." Blackwood nodded, already composing his report to Earth Defense Command. "They spent eons trying to eliminate chaos from the universe, never realizing that chaos itself might be the highest form of evolution. Our primitive minds represent everything they tried to destroy in themselves." He sent the report, then turned to his team. "Start developing targeted consciousness broadcast systems. If they want to harvest our thoughts, let's give them more than they can handle. It's time to show the giants that perfection isn't power. Adaptation is." As his team rushed to work, Blackwood stared at the dancing patterns of human consciousness on his screen. In their chaotic beauty, he saw not just humanity's defense, But perhaps the salvation of every species the giants had tried to remake in their image. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of irony after all. The research vessel Pandora hung in Mars orbit, its modified transmission arrays gleaming under the distant sunlight. Captain David Walker stood on the bridge, watching as technicians made final adjustments to what they dubbed the consciousness bomb, humanity's first purpose-built weapon against the giants. All broadcast systems ready, reported Lieutenant Jessica Torres from her station. Neural pattern amplifiers at maximum capacity. The civilian volunteers are in position. In the ship's newly constructed consciousness chamber, 30 humans, artists, dreamers, and creative minds, sat in neural interface chairs. Their thoughts would provide the ammunition for this unprecedented weapon. Timeline update, Walker commanded. Giant harvester approaching Mars colony. Torres responded. Current trajectory suggests harvest attempt in 15 minutes. Walker opened a channel to the consciousness chamber. Dr. Blackwood, are your people ready? As ready as we'll ever be, came the scientist's reply. Though I still say we should have named it something better than consciousness bomb. Walker allowed himself a small smile. Sometimes the simple names are best. Beginning countdown sequence. The giant appeared right on schedule, its crystalline form distorting the space around it as it approached Mars colony. Its energy patterns showed no sign of hesitation. Clearly, it hadn't received word of what happened at New Eden. Giant in range, Torres announced. Broadcasting in 3, 2, 1. The Pandora's modified arrays hummed to life. In the consciousness chamber, 30 minds began projecting their thoughts through the amplifiers. Artists imagined impossible colors and shades. Writers created entire worlds in seconds. Musicians composed symphonies that existed only in dreams. Children's pure imagination flowed alongside the complex creative processes of master artists. The effect on the giant was immediate and catastrophic. Its perfect crystalline form began to ripple as the chaotic human consciousness slammed into it. Where the giant's neural patterns tried to impose order, human creativity introduced impossible variables. Where it sought to categorize and control, human dreams provided experiences that defied classification. Pattern disruption at 200% of projected levels. Torres reported, her voice tight with excitement. The giant's neural matrix is destabilizing. Through the viewport, they watched as fractures appeared in the giant's form, spreading like cracks in ice. Its light patterns, usually precise and mathematical, began to fluctuate wildly. What is DAS? The giant's transmission burst through their comms, its usually ordered thoughts fragmented and chaotic. 2. Much VARINC. Can. No TPROCS. KNOT. Increase broadcast power. Walker ordered. Let's show them exactly what human minds can do. The consciousness chamber channeled another wave of pure human thought. Artists visualized fractals that broke mathematical laws. Writers imagined paradoxes that violated causality itself. The combined creative force of 30 unfettered human minds crashed against the giant's rigid consciousness like a tsunami of chaos. The giant's perfect form shattered. Its energy matrix, unable to contain or process the flood of human consciousness, collapsed in on itself. The being that had considered itself perfect, that had harvested countless species in its quest for order, was undone by the very chaos it had sought to eliminate from the universe. As the giant's remains dispersed into harmless particles, cheers erupted across the Pandora's bridge. But Walker kept his eyes on the tactical display, watching as the readings were transmitted to Earth Defense Command. "Send the data to all Earth ships," he ordered. "The consciousness bomb works. Now every vessel in the fleet can be modified to carry one." In the consciousness chamber, Dr. Blackwood was already analyzing the results. The effect was stronger than we anticipated. His voice came through the comm. Their rigid consciousness patterns make them exceptionally vulnerable to creative thought. They literally cannot process imagination without their neural matrices fracturing. Walker nodded, already thinking of the implications. Then we just changed the nature of this war. They thought they could harvest our consciousness. Let's show them exactly what human consciousness can do. The Pandora turned away from Mars, its modified arrays still humming with potential. Humanity had just proven that in a war of minds, chaos could defeat order. Imagination could overcome perfection. And the giants' greatest weakness was the very thing they had sacrificed in their quest for ascension. The beautiful, unpredictable power of organic thought. Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez crouched behind a crystalline pillar in the Nix-Airy underground resistance base, surrounded by aliens who, until a month ago, had been completely subservient to the giants. Her neural transmitter hummed softly at her belt, humanity's gift to the oppressed species of the galaxy. "You're certain this will work?" asked Kittle, a Nix-Airy resistance leader, whose translucent skin pulsed with nervous bioluminescence. "Our people have been mentally conditioned for generations to serve the giants." "Trust me," Rodriguez replied, checking the transmitter's charge. "The giants didn't just harvest consciousness. They'd been suppressing it, forcing every species to think like them. But they can't suppress what they can't understand." Above them, through layers of crystalline architecture, a giant patrol floated through the Nix-Airy capital city. For millennia, the giants had used this world as a consciousness farm, carefully cultivating the Nix-Airy to be orderly, predictable, and easily harvested. "Beginning transmission," Rodriguez announced, activating the device. It broadcast a carefully curated stream of human consciousness, art, music, dreams, and raw emotion. But more importantly, it carried something the giants had tried to eliminate from every species they encountered: the capacity for revolutionary thought. The effect rippled through the underground caverns where thousands of Nix-Airy had gathered. Their bioluminescent patterns, normally regulated and geometric, began to shift and swirl with new possibilities. Generations of mental conditioning began to crack. I can think differently," Kittle whispered, his skin blazing with unprecedented patterns. "I can imagine things that have never been." Rodriguez smiled. "That's the point. The giants didn't just want our neural energy. They wanted to remake every species in their image. Perfect, ordered, predictable. But they couldn't handle human consciousness because we never lost our chaos, our creativity." A young Nix-Airy approached, her skin displaying colors that her species hadn't exhibited in generations. "I had a dream," she announced, voice trembling. "We're not supposed to dream, but I saw possibilities, futures that the giants never planned." The revolution spread through the underground network like wildfire. The neural transmitter didn't just break the giants' conditioning. It reminded the Nix-Airy of what they used to be, of what all species were before the giants began their crusade for perfect order. Rodriguez's communicator chirped. Similar reports were coming in from across the galaxy. On 1,000 worlds, oppressed species were remembering how to dream, to create, to imagine futures beyond the giants' perfect prison of thought. "Orbital sensors detect giant reinforcements incoming," her AI assistant reported. "They're detecting the unusual consciousness patterns." But Rodriguez didn't call for evacuation. Instead, she turned to Kittle and the gathered resistance. "The giants are coming because they can sense you breaking free. But here's what they don't understand. They can't stop it. Once a mind remembers how to imagine, how to dream, it can never go back to perfect order." Kittle's skin rippled with determination. "Then we show them what the Nix-Airy were before they made us forget. Our ancestors were artists, dreamers, creators of beauty that defied mathematics." The giants' arrival shook the crystalline city above. But as they descended to harvest the rebellious thoughts, they found something their perfect minds couldn't process. Not just human chaos, but the awakening consciousness of a species remembering its own capacity for beautiful disorder. The first giant that attempted to harvest the newly awakened Nix-Airy shattered almost instantly, its neural matrix overwhelmed by thoughts and dreams it couldn't comprehend. The second suffered the same fate, its perfect form undone by the very imagination it had tried to suppress. Rodriguez watched as the Nixary's revolution of consciousness spread across their world. Their cities, once perfect geometric patterns, began to transform as newly awakened minds reshaped their reality. Art appeared on walls that had been blank for generations. Psalms echoed through streets that had known only ordered silence. "Send word to Earth Command," she transmitted. "Operation Awakening is successful. The revolution isn't just spreading, it's evolving. Every species the giants tried to perfect is remembering how to be beautifully imperfect again." Above the city, the remaining giants retreated from thoughts they couldn't harvest, couldn't control, couldn't understand. The perfect order they had imposed on the galaxy was unraveling, one awakened mind at a time. Operation Maelstrom began with a silence that belied the chaos to come. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, now retrofitted with the most powerful consciousness broadcasters ever created. Behind him, the largest fleet in human history hung in formation, not just Earth ships, but vessels from 24 liberated species. "All ships reporting ready," Lieutenant Hayes announced. "Consciousness chambers at full capacity." Morrison nodded, his eyes fixed on the swirling energy patterns ahead that marked the giants' home system. Their perfect crystalline cities floated in the void, each structure a testament to their obsession with absolute order. "Open fleet-wide channel," he commanded. "All species, all ships." When he spoke, his words were translated into 20 different languages. This is Admiral Morrison. For millennia, the giants have harvested consciousness, forcing their version of perfection upon the galaxy. Today, we show them that perfection isn't power, diversity is. The fleet moved forward. In consciousness chambers across thousands of ships, representatives from every liberated species prepared to broadcast their thoughts, dreams, and memories. Humans sat alongside Nixari, their chaotic minds synchronizing with aliens who had recently remembered how to dream. The giants noticed them immediately. Hundreds of crystalline forms rose from their cities, their perfect geometries radiating contempt. "Your CAKO's NDs here," their unified transmission boomed. "Order must be RDVL. All ships, initiate Maelstrom Protocol," Morrison ordered. "Full broadcast spectrum. Show them everything we are." The consciousness chambers activated simultaneously. Human artists imagined impossible colors. Nixari dreamers recalled ancient songs their species had forgotten. Warriors from the Kith-era collective channeled battle poems that defied translation. Each species contributed its own unique chaos to the storm. The effect on the giants' home system was catastrophic. Their perfect crystalline cities began to fracture as waves of pure imagination crashed against them. Where the giants tried to impose order, they found dreams that defied their mathematics. Where they attempted to harvest consciousness, they encountered thoughts that their rigid minds couldn't process. "Impossible," the giants broadcast, their unified voice fragmenting. "Too much variance cannot maintain cohesion." "Push forward," Morrison commanded. Second wave, initiate broadcast. New patterns joined the storm. Children's laughter, lovers' dreams, the abstract thoughts of poets and philosophers from a dozen worlds. The giants' defensive formations shattered as their perfect minds encountered emotions they had engineered out of themselves eons ago. A giant commander, larger than the others, moved to counterattack. "Your species are imperfect. Chaos must be harvested." "You're wrong," Morrison transmitted back. "Our flaws, our chaos, our imperfection, that's what makes us strong. That's what makes us alive." The consciousness storm intensified. Humans broadcast the raw emotion of first love. Nixari shared the joy of rediscovered art. The Kith-era transmitted the beautiful confusion of their spiral logic mathematics. Each cargo of thought crashed against the giant's rigid consciousness like waves against glass. The giant commander's perfect form began to crack. "We are pure ACTYN. We are order. We are." Its transmission cut off as its consciousness matrix collapsed, unable to process the combined imagination of the species it had tried to harvest. Around it, other giants began to fall, their energy forms dispersing into clouds of light as their perfect minds encountered more chaos than they could comprehend. "Final wave," Morrison ordered. "Everything we have. Show them who we really are." The combined fleet unleashed a tsunami of consciousness. Every dream, every contradiction, every beautiful imperfection that made their species unique crashed against the giants' home system. Their crystalline cities, monuments to perfect order, shattered under the weight of organic chaos. As the last giant formations collapsed, Morrison watched their perfect society dissolve into stardust. They had spent eons trying to impose order on a chaotic universe, never understanding that chaos itself was the highest form of order. "Send word to all allied worlds," he commanded. "The giant's reign is over. The age of perfect order is finished." He paused, watching the debris of crystalline cities drift past the viewport. The galaxy belongs to the dreamers now. 1 year after Operation Maelstrom, the former giant command center had been transformed. Where perfect crystalline structures once imposed rigid order on space itself, a sprawling station of organic and technological fusion now orbited the system's star. The Galactic Coalition of Free Consciousness had chosen this place for their headquarters, a reminder of what they'd overcome. Admiral Morrison, now serving as Earth's representative to the Coalition, stood before the grand observation window. Behind him, delegates from 37 species filled the chamber, their minds linked through modified versions of the giant's own technology. "The last giant outpost fell yesterday," he announced to the assembled representatives. "Their quest for perfect order is officially over." Kittel, the Nixari resistance leader, now serving as first speaker, moved forward. His skin rippled with patterns that would have been forbidden under giant rule. Yet we find ourselves facing a new challenge. The giants left behind thousands of worlds they had processed, species who have forgotten how to dream. "Then we remind them," came a new voice. Dr. Rachel Martinez, the hero of New Eden Colony, stepped up to the central platform. The neural interfaces she'd helped design hummed to life, connecting every being in the chamber in a web of shared consciousness. "Look," she said, projecting her thoughts through the network. The assembled delegates saw giant technology repurposed into art galleries, dream-sharing centers, and cultural exchange hubs. "We've turned their tools of harvest into instruments of growth." Through the neural link, each species shared their experience of awakening. The Nixari showed the first moments of rediscovered creativity. The Kith era demonstrated how their spiral logic had evolved once freed from giant constraints. Humans shared their centuries of dreams, art, and imagination. The giants believed that perfect order was the universe's destiny. Morrison continued. They were wrong. The universe trends toward complexity, toward beautiful chaos. Our victory proved that diversity isn't just strength, it's evolution itself. A holographic display activated, showing the thousands of worlds still under rehabilitation. Former giant harvesting stations now broadcast consciousness patterns that helped enslaved species remember their original nature. Each day, another civilization remembered how to dream. "But we must be careful," Catal warned, his skin patterns shifting to serious hues. "We cannot simply impose our chaos as they impose their order. Each species must find their own path back to imagination." Martinez nodded, adjusting the neural interface. "That's why we modify their technology. Instead of harvesting consciousness, it now allows us to share experiences, to learn from each other while maintaining our unique perspectives." The chamber hummed with shared thoughts and emotions. A Kithera warrior shared the complex beauty of their battle poems. A young Nixari artist transmitted a dream sculpture that defied physical laws. Human children shared their unfiltered imagination, bringing gasps of wonder from species who were relearning how to be surprised. "This is what the giants never understood," Morrison said, gesturing to the gathered delegates. "True advancement doesn't come from imposing a single pattern on the universe. It comes from the endless dance of different patterns creating something greater than themselves. Through the observation window, construction crews were converting the last giant city into an interspecies cultural center. Its perfect geometric patterns were being reshaped by organic chaos, creating a structure that honored both order and imagination. "We are not here to rule as the giants did," Kittel declared, his patterns blazing with conviction. "We are here to remind, to awaken, to share. Every species has its own song to sing in the cosmic symphony." The neural network hummed with agreement. In that moment, every being in the chamber shared a vision of the future, not a future of perfect order, but one of endless possibility. Where the giants had sought to make the universe simple, this new coalition would embrace its beautiful complexity. As the session ended, Morrison remained at the window, watching ships from dozens of worlds come and go. Each carried consciousness broadcasts to the far corners of the galaxy, helping imprisoned minds remember how to dream. Their message to the stars was no longer one of harvest, but of awakening, not of imposed perfection, but of celebrated diversity. The giants' age of crystal clarity had given way to something far more powerful, the chaotic, wonderful, impossible beauty of minds set free to imagine. The universe, it seemed, preferred dreamers to gods.